Player 2 has joined the game.
Hey, yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome to a very special episode 245 of the Two Player Co-op Podcast. As always, I'm one of your hosts here, Kevin, along with my brother from my mother, Sean.
How we doing?
Fantastic. If you didn't know, this is the Two Player Co-op Podcast, where just about every week, sometimes twice a week, two brothers get together to tell you everything you need to know about in the world of video games. If you like that, make sure you like the video, subscribe it, share it with your friends, family, and everyone in betwixt. If you really like us, you can go to patreon.com/twoplayercoop, just like our affiliates, James Solar, Sarah Solar, and John Tingley did, as well as our producers, Steve Appleton, Aunt Sue, Vernon Slayton, and Dustin Downs. No offense, guys. Sean said to put the affiliates first. Blame him. If you like cool t-shirts and stuff that are merch, you can go to teespring.com/stores/twoplayercoop. So we are recording this intro after we just recorded with Jono for, 45 minutes or so. We'll see when I edit it. Jono was awesome. If you didn't know, he was the sound designer, lead writer, and narrative designer, I think are the actual terms. Hold on, I got it here. Narrative designer, lead writer, and sound designer on Trigger Witch. If you missed it last week, we put up our review for it. We gave it a 9 out of 10. We love Trigger Witch. Like I said in that review, or either on Twitter or something, and I said in the interview, this game seems like it was made for us. I thought you were going to say something.
Nope.
Okay.
I had something in my teeth. I was just trying to get it out.
Flick it. But Jono is just... It's so good to follow somebody on Twitter and they seem like a super nice guy, and then you actually get to talk to him and they are a super nice guy, and that's what Jono is. This interview was a lot of fun. Anything you want to add, Sean?
Stay tuned. Keep your eyes peeled for a special surprise guest that may show up later on in the episode. But yeah, it was great talking to Jono. It was cool learning some of the influences. Yeah, the influences and behind the scenes stories and stuff of the game, the development and all that. So yeah, it was great talking to him.
That's enough of an intro. So now let's get to our interview with Jono Pech. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another very special episode of the Two Player Co-op Podcast. Today we are joined by Jono Pech, the managing editor at 8-Bit, the host of the Puttin' in Work podcast, also the narrative designer, lead writer, and sound designer on Trigger Witch. Holy crap, that is quite the intro, my man.
It's getting long, isn't it? I might need to cut a few of those things out.
We love this game. We want to get into the game in a little bit, but first we want to talk to you about some of just life, personal stuff, not too personal and everything. But before we get into Trigger Witch, I know Sean had some questions for you.
So yeah, I mean, I've always just been fascinated by Australia. I've never been. I want to go someday. How is it there? I mean, you like it there?
Yeah, it's great. I can't complain. Sorry.
So the stereotype, I guess, is that, in Australia, everything's basically trying to kill you. You got giant spiders and snakes and scorpions. And is this just kind of an old wives' tale, or is it pretty legit? There's some things there that really want to kill you.
I mean, I think anywhere you go, there are things that are trying to kill you. Like, whereabouts are you guys based exactly?
So we're just outside of Memphis, and yeah, here in the US there's lots of people that will try to kill you. I will say that.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess that is like the stereotype that we have about you guys. It's like, they're running around with guns, and there's grizzly bears, and there's Bigfoot, and there's cougars. Like, you guys have your share of dangerous exotic animals as well, not to mention Tiger King and people running around with lions,
some crazy people
and tigers and stuff that on the loose sometimes. But so I guess there are definitely our share of poisonous snakes and spiders. But as far as like encountering those things, I can't remember the last time I've never been bitten by a spider. I've never been bitten by a snake. I can't remember the last time I saw a snake. It was probably when I was hiking or something. So it's that kind of thing where if you live in a city like I do, or like a regional center, you got nothing to worry about, really. I mean, occasionally, you might see a large spider crawling down the window outside or making its way into the house. But I like look it up. The last time someone died from a spider bite was probably like 20, 30 years ago. Or
wow.
if it does happen,
Wow.
it might happen like once every few years or something. It's like a shark attack, essentially. We've got good anti-venoms and stuff these days.
Yeah, I bet. Okay. I mean, that's what I figured. I figured most of that's kind of relegated to, the outback and stuff. I'm guessing living in a city, you're probably not coming home every day to spiders and scorpions inside your apartment.
Exactly. That's right. I think we have like a certain percentage of the world's most venomous spiders, for example. Like there's spiders in every country. But I think some people, it's the unknown for people as well overseas. They just like latch onto these ideas and run with them. Of course,
Right.
you got people like the crocodile hunter, Steve Irwin, and all his adventures that people think is just the way things are. But no, we don't ride kangaroos to work and play with koalas too often.
Right. Yeah.
Well, one of the things you do have to worry about there is mailbox issues. And following your mailbox saga was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. I know it's been resolved now, but so do you know exactly what the heck happened?
Yeah, so for the dear listeners out there who don't know, we got home one day and my wife came home from shopping and the letterbox, the mailbox was gone and replaced with a new one. And we didn't know why. We hadn't ordered a new letterbox. It's not something that just happens down here. Mailboxes don't just go disappearing. So it was a bit of a mystery until I saw a similar one up the road a few hundred yards and talked to them about it. And they said that they had like a government house and the government had come and replaced their letterbox. And I, contacted the relevant Department of Housing, and they said that it was a mistake with the contractor. He got the wrong address. Okay. So they had to come and fix it up, and now we have a brand new letterbox. So
with a correct address.
Ends well. Yeah.
It
doesn't happen. We even went to the police just in case it was like an issue that they were aware of, and they said it was the strangest thing they'd ever heard.
There's a serial mailbox installer on the loose.
Yeah, we had so many wild theories. Like maybe there was a neighbor who didn't like it. It was a bit like it was wooden and it was kind of old and rotting and a bit covered in moss. And maybe they just hated the letterbox and they were sick of looking at it, so they snuck out and replaced it while we were out of the house. But no, it was a lot simpler than that.
Well, I also know, Jono, that you're a big NBA fan. So like I said, we're here just outside of Memphis. We love our Grizzlies. We're both originally from upstate New York originally. But the Grizzlies have now become my favorite team. I don't know how I feel about the draft last night. Zaire was not who I was thinking they would take with Moody and what's his name?
Boog Knight or whatever.
Yeah, Book Knight available. But I still think it was a good pick, and I like that they're looking to the future. But I really want to just ask you, like, what is it like watching the NBA from Australia? Like, so are you watching? Because I cannot get these time zones straight, man. So I assume like the NBA finals are on, and you wake up and like 9-10 in the morning, the finals are on.
It's usually around this time of the day. Like I'm guessing for you guys, what is it, like 7 or 8 o'clock for you right now? 9 o'clock here. Yeah. Yeah. So it's usually around this time. That the games are either halfway through or getting started, depending on if it's like an East Coast or West Coast game. So yeah, it's kind of like you're at work and you're kind of checking your phone, looking at the score, or I might sit down on my lunch break and watch the last quarter or something of a game. And that's usually the way that I follow it, along with, fantasy basketball and getting to watch games here and there on the weekend when there's, games all day, which is quite nice to when the schedule's loaded. So yeah, it's definitely tougher to follow everything, but I listen to a lot of basketball podcasts and that kind of thing, and makes it good fun to follow along. And it's basketball has been a passion and interest of mine since I was a kid, and the Space Jam era, which is super relevant now. And being a big MJ Bulls fan,
Yep.
I've stuck with Chicago through all those years and turmoil. And I guess that's something that you guys would know about as either former Knicks fans or, even as Grizzly fans. That hasn't always been super encouraging what they're putting out on the floor, but it's looking up for you guys with Jar and some of the other guys over there, and that they just made this trade to get Eric Bledsoe. And I don't know, we probably shouldn't deep dive too much into basketball for your gaming audience, but there's a lot to be excited about in Tennessee.
It's a good time to be a Grizzlies fan, I think, for sure.
Yeah, we could probably spend an hour on basketball, but all right, let's talk Trigger Witch. So we were lucky enough to get codes. Thank you, East Asia. We appreciate it. They've been super generous. Same with Rainbite, super communicative and everything. Everything leading up to the release of this game was awesome.
That's great.
If anybody's listening to this that hasn't seen a review yet, go to youtube.com/2player-co-op. Check out the review. We gave this a 9 out of 10. This game, like when I first saw it way back at 2019, maybe it was, when it was on Kind of Funny. I can't remember.
It was like
their showcase thing.
I think they started developing at the start of 2019. So it would have been like halfway through that year, I think.
Okay. But then when Colin started talking about it earlier this year, I was like, that sounds familiar, Trigger Witch. And I went and looked up the trailer, and I was like, oh my God, it's Zelda with guns. This is, I had forgotten about this. This is awesome. But so yeah, we have absolutely loved it. I did get the platinum yesterday.
Nice.
Though some of those chests were very tough. Like I tweeted you, I did have to look up a guide because some of them, those caves are way bigger than you think they are.
One of those caves gave me a bit of grief. Like getting like to talk to like the other developers on the game, being like, "Where is it, man?" And I had to like really be specific.
But now you got the first platinum, right?
I did.
That's awesome.
My claim to fame now. It's,
that's awesome.
I was really keen to be the first, and usually it would be Jared who's the real trophy hunter in the Rainbite team, but I think he's done so much testing and playing of the game that he was like not motivated to go out and rush through to get the platinum. So I was able to get it first because I was hungry. I was the hungriest of the people with early access because I hadn't actually played through the full thing in its final form.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, we got review codes for Hebroxia 2. And I think on Vita, I might have been top 10 or 15 getting the platinum. On the PS4, Sean beat me by like, he was number 13. I think I was 15, something like that.
That's pretty close, yeah.
But yeah,
do you know where you rank for Trigger Witch? You'd have to be top 15.
You got to be pretty close, yeah.
I need to look up PSN profile. So maybe I'll ask you this and then I'll look that up. But so how did you get, so I know you do 8-bit and everything, but how did you go? And Jono, like, honestly, I don't even know what your day job is. We, like, I work in IT for a local, medical device manufacturing company here. Sean works for the same company. He's a engineer there, or an engineering manager now. But so how did you get involved with Rainbite? Like, is there something that drew you to this? Do you have a love for Zelda games or something? And just like, how did this all come to be? Because working on a game, either actually making the game, coding it, doing the pixel art, whatever, I don't have the free time. Again, I've got 4 kids, so I don't have the free time to do it right now. But just being involved with the making of a game like you were with Trigger Witch is a dream of mine, and I think Sean's too.
So I would love it.
So how did this all come to be?
First of all, I work in the healthcare industry as well. I'm in like a marketing and communications department for a big health service where I live. It's like the biggest employer in my city. So we have a lot of staff and a lot of communications that go out. So I'm previously a journalist, and writing and editing, that's always been like my background and my skill. So from there, leaving journalism and getting into the more comms and marketing side of things. A few years ago, I wrote and published a couple of novels, The Maven Effect and The Spy and the Maven.
Yep.
And that was my first foray into creative writing. And I think from there, that gave me the confidence that I could write a game, and it was something that I'd love, I really wanted to be involved with. So I had struck up a friendship with some of the guys at Rainbite, particularly Jared, the lead programmer, through interviewing them on my podcast, Putting in Work, and talking to them about their previous game, Reverie, which is another Zelda style indie. And from there, just from being friends and, playing games together, I let him know that I was, keen to work on games at some point, and maybe I could edit their next game, because Reverie had dialogue and stuff. It wasn't really a in-depth story, though. I just thought it would be, I'd come in and maybe punch up what they'd done, check the tutorials and all that kind of thing. But they said that they were working on something with a bit more of a narrative focus, and asked if I wanted to write their next game, which turned out to be Trigger Witch. And from there, I just really sunk my teeth in and probably made it a lot more narrative focused than even they had originally thought would happen. So it was, such a great experience. And I definitely have that outsider's perspective on the process, as someone that has wanted to do this, but not known how to get into it.
Yeah.
And I really feel just so privileged that the first game I've worked on has been something as good as this. And thank you for the 9 out of 10. That's one of the best scores we've had. I'm glad you really enjoyed it. And to be part of a game that's this good, I have to pinch myself sometimes, because it's wild, and it's something I want to do a lot more of. But to have this as my starting, foot in the door, I'm just really pleased with how everything's going.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely right up both our alleys. We both have been playing Zelda for almost as long as we've been alive. But,
right.
Zelda, I mean, the story is more or less the same every time, right? You got the hero, you got to save the princess, save the world, kill the bad guy, whatever. But that was one thing we both really liked about Trigger, which is just there's a legitimately good story to this game. And the writing kind of sucks you in. You're not the silent protagonist like you are in Zelda. You actually have a voice. You get to choose responses and all that. So I mean, the writing in this game it's great. It's fantastic. Now, I have not beaten it yet. I was talking to Kevin before we went on. I think I just got into the last dungeon, so I'm getting close. So no spoilers on the ending. We won't talk too much about the story, but yeah, it's just great. It's nice to see, the gameplay is exactly what we want. We, like I said, we both love Zelda, but it's nice to see, some in-depth story going along with it for sure.
Yeah, I think the way that all the different gameplay elements have come together has created something fairly unique. Like a lot of people have these great memories of playing Zelda or Zelda style games back in the previous generations, when it was the sprites and the pixel art. But then to throw this modern twin stick shooter twist on it, where you just simply couldn't, there weren't two sticks back then, so it wasn't really a thing. And then to throw in like RPG elements and upgrades and dialogue options, I feel like, and an open world where you can decide like, okay, which of these dungeons am I going to go to first? I think that's something that's made this game unique. I certainly can't think of anything that's done quite all those things at the same time. And I think that's pretty cool. I think that's something that makes it stand out to me. A lot of twin stick shooters are roguelikes, or they're arcadey games like Resogun and that kind of housemark experience. So as awesome as those games are for people that like a story and progression and exploring and that kind of thing, I think that we've got a kind of a unique little indie gem on our hands.
That's one thing, that I picked up on immediately playing this game, especially just coming fresh off of Returnal. This game kind of feels like it, could have been a roguelike. It's got the combat and the bullet hell and all the different weapons and stuff. And I just want to say I'm so glad that it's not, because I'm kind of burned out on that. Returnal absolutely. Just about killed me. I much prefer just a more traditional game, but yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I think the assumption with like based on a lot of the comments we got on trailers and stuff was, is this a roguelike?
Yeah.
and it's like, nope,
Yeah.
we did not want to make that kind of game. And it's much more accessible, I think, than those style, which people tend to love. That like people that like it tend to love it, if that makes sense, and they play like hundreds of hours. Like you look at the trophy list for Enter the Gungeon or something, and as someone that's like fairly newbie at roguelikes, I'm like, man, this is really intimidating. But I think, yeah, this is just a much more accessible genre than that.
Definitely.
Yeah. And so I looked up, apparently right now I am number 5 on the platinum list.
Wow.
Now, when everybody sinks their trophies, maybe that won't stick, but right now that'll be my claim to fame.
Is that on PSN profiles?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that would be after me, 2 other developers, and a game tester. So you're basically
you're the first of the general public.
Look, I will say, my boss isn't watching. I will say, like I burned after we were getting ready to do the review. We got all the footage, the audio, and everything captured Monday. I edited everything Monday night, but I will say Monday during the day, I was like, well, let's see how SharePlay works on my iPad, and it worked really well. Or remote play, I should say. But yeah, I burned through this game. I absolutely loved it. But I know, so you tweeted a few days ago, I think it was, about how you actually, the quote unquote voices for the Man in Black was you, and your wife did some of the female voices, and your son actually did the explosions for when the enemies die. That is, as a father, that just obviously you can see it on my face. That just brings such a smile to my face. Like that just makes me so happy. And it's such a cool way to look at doing and it did take me back to, again, I don't know how old you are, Jono. I'm almost 4. I'll be 40 in November, but it takes me back to when like the old 16-bit era games, when someone's talking, it is just a and it just brought a smile to my face when you tweeted that. I was like, oh, this just makes it even better, man.
That's cool. Yeah, I'm 33, so I definitely recall some of those older games, or even it used to be like like just a little beeping kind of sound as the text scrolls across the screen, or like a typewriter noise. I think originally we had like, so there's a quill that acts as the cursor in some of the menus and stuff. So originally it was like the scratching of a quill as the text came up. And I don't know if it was a particular game that inspired the idea, but Jared, the programmer, said to me that he wanted to, I think maybe like Animal Crossing, which was huge last year. It's like, it'd be great if we could have some voice to add a bit of character to it. So we tried a few different things, and in Animal Crossing, they like connect each word, like the first letter of that word is a particular sound, so it actually sounds like someone kind of talking in their own language. So we experimented with a few different things and ended on just like having the one sound for the whole line, which is more of a Undertale kind of thing that they did in that game. And so it was getting my wife to record like a ma or a ba or something like that, and then just like pitching it up and down to be slightly different for different characters depending on like, who they were or how old they were. And then doing the same thing with the Man in Black and the goblins and the miners. And as far as like the way that I used my kid, it was just like working from home in the pandemic. There was a lot of times where it was just, he'd end up on the floor of my office where I'm recording this right now. And I'd just kind of be watching him, and he'd be like making some noises or babbling or crying. And I'd just be like, oh, I'm just going to like hit record and get some of these sounds, because they sound like kind of interesting. Some weird noises, like in context, everything makes sense. But then if you isolate like a split second of a person or a creature or an animal or a kid, it can sound really weird. And then you start to like pitch it up or you pitch it down, and that's how I got a lot of the sounds for monsters in the game, especially when you're like shooting them and they're exploding. And the imps in the game, they're all little Micah crying out in pain, which is a really conflicting thing when you're playing the game and remembering and hearing it, and even like as dads, it's like you have that sixth sense of like, did I just hear a baby cry? Like,
right.
If you're like watching like a movie and there's a baby crying and you're like, what was that?
Yep.
So yeah, it made replaying or playing the game quite interesting as I was remembering those sounds.
Yeah. Once I saw your tweet, I was listening to it in my head, and I was like, oh, okay, I do get it. That's hilarious, but it's awesome at the same time. So yeah, when you tweet it, just made me so happy. I love to see that.
So, so you said you got close, you got some friends at Rainby. That's kind of how this whole process started. But I mean, did you know what Trigger Witch, or what ended up becoming Trigger Witch, was going to be, or you just kind of sign up and you said, I'm in, whatever this is, I'm ready to help out? Or
yeah, I think that Jared had said their next game was going to be a twin stick shooter, and that was kind of all that I knew. And I saw like the announcement trailer like everyone else in the Kind of Funny showcase, and I thought, yeah, it looks really cool. And I think at that stage it was too early for them to know exactly what it was going to be. But by the time they brought me in, which was probably 4 or 5 months after that, I can't remember exactly when the launch was, but about a year and a half ago, I got on the Discord call with them, and they talked me through the story, which was essentially, you got the main characters, this witch and her friends and her mom, and there was a couple of other characters that didn't make it into the final version, but this concept was there. They had like the portal, guns come through the portal, and it's a world full of magic and guns. And they had there's a big twist towards the end that you guys are aware of or close to, and they had that in the game at that point. So that was kind of like, oh, okay, I don't know how this is going to work, but that was my job to kind of tie it all in and try and make it make sense within the scope of everything else that's happening in the game. And I think that we really personally think we nailed that. And that was really fun, just to try and make everything make sense, because it was like we had this concept of guns and fantasy elements, and then it was up to me to kind of try and make it work and make it feel like, okay, that makes sense. Like, they don't use magic anymore. Maybe there's a character that still does use magic, and maybe they're kind of considered like a bit of an outcast from the community, and how does that tie in, and what could be like an explanation for what happens to a world when you transition from a world of magic into a world of gun-fueled violence, and what would that do to the communities. So it was fun to kind of put that hat on and have this kind of A to B to C to D mapped out for me, and just kind of fill in all the gaps and color in between all the dots that had been connected.
Yeah, I'm very intrigued now by this twist. I think I've got next session that I can sit down and play. Probably tomorrow I'll beat it. I'll hopefully get the platinum this weekend.
Dude, you cannot. When I got to the final level, I was like, no spoilers, but I was like, are they doing this? Yeah. And I had a feeling of what was happening, and then I got to the final boss, and I was just like, oh my God. So I don't know who came up with that. Again, we don't want to spoil anything if people haven't beaten it yet, but it was such, and the final boss fight is awesome. All the different faces and everything, you're in for a treat, and it is difficult. I will say that. Yeah. I think it was 3 phases. But when you actually get the reveal of who the Man in Black is, I was just like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I don't know how, and that's the other thing, Jono, there is so much writing in this game. There's so much dialogue. There's so much story. There is so much in here that I can't even imagine how many hours you had to pour into this game. But it all works. I love the humor. I love the emotion. I love the different characters and how they interact, and how some things change as you go on, and then they change again and whatever. But there's so much to this, this 10 to 12 hour game. There is so much lore, whatever you want to say, that's packed in here. And I just have to say kudos, man. It wasn't just the gameplay was so much fun. And once I got it took me a little bit to get the twin stick controls down. But once I did, I was like, okay, I know how to play this game. But then some games I might just I'll keep clicking X and skip. But I was like, no, I want to actually read this. I want to know about Colette and her mom and her friends and the Man in Black and all this. And it's so well done, man. And I'm not trying to blow smoke up your butt or anything, but it is honestly so well done. And like, I don't know if people aren't, I haven't read a lot of reviews about it, but I don't know if people aren't focusing on how like just what an amazing job you did with this.
Thank you.
It's
Yeah.
awesome.
That means a lot to me because everything that you just said is exactly what I was trying to do, and it sounds like you're the person that I was aiming
Yeah.
it for, like someone that appreciates it, someone that gets all these references, pop culture references, and the inspiration from
Yep.
other games that we used to play, and it's definitely something that I've been working on for so long, like many hundreds of hours when you include like
Yeah.
the sound design and the writing. So to hear what you just said is really what I've been waiting for in a lot of ways, and to see people have that exact reaction, because not everyone does have that reaction. Some people either they just think the story's fine, it's there, and it's a bit wacky and it's fun, and there's some awful dad jokes that people seem to be enjoying, and then other people not enjoying so much. And I've been reading like every review, and it's been fascinating to see like the range of opinions. But it's everything. It's like some people like the story and they find issues with other things, and then some people love the gameplay and they just kind of so on the narrative elements. But it seems like it hit all the marks for you guys, which is really cool, and you totally get what we were trying to do, which is awesome.
Yeah, this game was made for us, is what I would say. Like,
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know if I can't remember if we said that in review or just in the tweet, but this game, it just felt like all the way through, I was like, this was made for us. Like, we ranked, so we, a couple 20 episodes ago or whatever it was, we each did our top 50 games, and we power ranked them, and then we came up with one list to say what are our top 50 games of all time. And A Link to the Past, excuse me, I just spit on the microphone. A Link to the Past ended up being number one. And then to see this, like I said in the review, to see the Zelda formula with like flipped on its head with the guns instead of swords and bow and arrows and everything, but honestly with an even better story, I would probably say, than A Link to the Past, was that this game was absolutely made for us, period.
That's awesome.
Well, yeah, and I mean, like you said, obviously there's a lot of Zelda inspiration in this game. I get some roguelike elements out of the combat. There's to me, I see some ties to even like Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy has a lot of that, magic versus technology and that kind of element to it. It also kind of made me think, I don't know if you played it. Did you ever play The Messenger?
Yes. Yeah.
Because I kind of got a vibe, The Messenger, we both loved that game. And that's another game that, the game itself was just a lot of fun. And it's the kind of game that it's like, this has no business, having such a cool story and cool writing to it on top of, just the fun gameplay. And that's kind of what this reminds me of. It's a fun game just to sit down and play. And then kind of the, the icing on the cake is just, the story that you're not really expecting, and the great writing and all that. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm really glad to hear you mention some of those games, because clearly, the visual style is inspired partly by Link to the Past, being that fantasy setting. The developers Rainbite's first game was much more Link to the Past in the gameplay, where it's like, you unlock a new item, and then that item allows you to solve these different puzzles, whether it's like they had a cricket bat instead of a sword, and they had a yo-yo instead of boomerang, and so on and so forth. But this game, while it holds on to that visual style, it's moved more into another style of gameplay. But as far as the narrative goes, like The Messenger was definitely like on my mind as far as like the tone of that game and the humor of that game, and the kind of the meta kind of thing that they had going on when you went in there and talked to shopkeeper. And it was like so much fun to just see that kind of world flipped on its head a little bit with just fun jokes and stupid humor that took me back to like the old LucasArts games, which are also a big inspiration to me, like Monkey Island and Grim Fandango and that kind of thing. And then to mention Final Fantasy, like for me, it was certainly on my mind. Like I've said in some other podcasts, like Final Fantasy VII is one of my favorite games, and I love that the side characters in that game in your party all have their own personal story arcs that they go on at different points in the game, and they all have these developments that they go through to flesh out their character or to end up in a different place than they were at the start of the game. And that was really what I wanted to do in this game. Like you have a dungeon where you learn more about Remy and you figure out like what her future's going to be like. And the same thing happens with Shelley. And then by the end of the game, they're in completely different places, and it affects you as their friend as well. And I'm really happy with that, how that came together.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's it. Yeah. So the funny thing, I think we both said, I think The Messenger was 2018, because I think it was the same year God of War came out. God of War is my third favorite game of all time. But I thought actually the writing in The Messenger that year, I said, this is one of the best written games I've ever played. Like the humor, the fourth wall breaking, everything, like you said, with the shopkeeper, it was amazing. So that's, now that I know you drew inspiration from that, it makes sense why this was so well written. So that's awesome.
Oh. Hi. So this guy,
a special guest host,
refuses to go back down, but
hey, buddy,
he's maybe tired enough that I might be able to get through this with him. But here's Micah, one of the stars of Trigger Witch.
He did a fantastic job, Micah.
Is that all right with you guys?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, cool.
So we won't keep you too long. Just cover a couple other things. So you did, I think you said, you wrote also the trophy / achievement list?
Yeah, I mean, there was, I did. I wrote the trophy list and came up with a bunch of ideas. It wasn't like 100% me. I have to give some credit to the other guys, I think, for throwing ideas and puns in there for some of those names. But I feel like probably 90% of them were ones or titles that I came up with in one way or another. Yeah.
So was it you? I have to say again, I know we both like Colin. I know Colin's a friend of yours and everything. So when I saw the Sacred Symbols trophy pop, I was like, yes. when they started mentioning the Sacred Symbols and everything, and I was
that was the last dungeon I did. I remember Colin tweeting about like, "Oh, thanks, Jono, for the shout out and the trophy list or whatever." I'm like, okay, and then I just did that dungeon right before it came over. I'm like, okay, clearly this is going to be that trophy, and
yeah, that was me, definitely. Colin's been a good supporter of mine and of Rainbite. Actually, he's a huge fan of their first game, Reverie.
Yep.
And I think he put it in his like favorite games of the year list when he used to do videos for SideQuest or whatever it was on the channel. So yeah, it was really cool to just show him some love. I've always been like big on referencing things that I like, and like kind of funny were referenced in Rainbite's first game with like a poster in an arcade, and Greg Miller was kind of like somewhat of a trophy consultant on that game, where they I think he mentioned on like a podcast that he was happy to take a look at people's trophy lists and give feedback, and they did that to just get his take on it and just make some kind of connection, which is cool. And Colin's been really supportive, and even like him and Barry from Lilimo Games both played like an early build of Trigger Witch, so they helped with a bit of testing and made it into the credits from that as well.
Yeah, I did. I saw Colin, I saw Barry as well, and that made me happy. But yeah, I think like we said in the review, I think that the trophy list it's not like a Ratalaika game. It's nothing like that, but it's a very fair, if you put in the effort, it's a very achievable platinum. I think it's a very good, fair list. There's some games that are ridiculous, like, Resistance 2, I think it was 10,000 kills in multiplayer. What are we talking about? But then there's other games where it's just play for 20 minutes, you get the platinum. This is like a perfect trophy list. I would say that it's achievable. You have to put in the work. You got to experiment with other guns. You got to experiment with how to kill certain enemies and everything. But I thought it was a great job.
We deliberately made it so that certain things that were in the game that we really wanted people to experience, we just found a way to make sure that some people will do them. For example, you've got the character called the Gambler, which I won't give away completely what that's about, but you can go down there and win something from him. So I was like, how do we make sure people actually go through with it? Well, let's make a trophy. And then in the end game, after the game ends, you can go around and talk to some of the different characters, and it's kind of like a epilogue to the game. And again, like there's a trophy connected to that, just to kind of encourage people to experience the full story. And that was the same idea with, it's tough when you're writing a game with a big backstory, especially in the fantasy world where there's something as crazy as guns. It's like, okay, well, there's a lot of lore to get across here, and we can do it, like we can trickle it out through dialogue across the entire game. But then we wanted there to be a way to drop a bunch of that at once if people wanted that extra detail for that backstory. And I hate when it's compulsory for players to have to experience that lore. And I'm someone that never like reads all the books in like Skyrim and The Witcher and everything. There's so much detail and depth in those. But there's this one book in the chamber, the church, that you can read about the history of the realm there in Evertonia, and that was also trophy related. And it's been like fascinating to me to just over time, like I'm just looking at the trophy completion percentage and seeing like, okay, like we got half of the people are reading the book, or we've got like 40% of people, and the platinum's gone from 10% down to 5%. And what does that mean? Like more people are playing it now, and people are going to this dungeon first instead of that one. I find all that stuff just like interesting. As I guess I like stats and stuff as a sports fan. It's fascinating to look at that too.
Well, the one trophy that tripped me up, that I was like, wait, I didn't get the trophy for doing all the broom sections. And then I was just going around looking for the chest and everything. I was like, oh, wait a minute. I never did the broom at the arena. That's what it is. And then I got that to pop, and then I finished up the chest and got the platinum. But
yeah, there's been a few that I've noticed people aren't 100% clear on at the end of the game, and that's one of them. And then there's the that chest that we've probably all had trouble finding. Yeah. And then there's I think there's one other, but like there's one with the Uzi for like shooting every single bullet without missing, which was an idea that I had without actually testing it out, which it's a lot harder than it sounds. When the Uzi's so got like such a wide spread, but there's ways that you can cheese it, so I don't feel too bad.
Yeah, I got on one of the ice block guys, but
I think I saw, because when you got your platinum, the screenshot you shared, and then Jono, I think you said that was the last chest you found too. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure I saw that today, and I'm like, I think this is the one. I'm gonna find it. And I did a couple laps around. I couldn't find it. I said, screw it. I'll get it later with a guide or something. But yeah, I couldn't figure it out. But.
Yeah, it's tricky because there's like 2 exits within the same cave. So you kind of go through there once and walk past one of the exits. But then, once you're really looking for it, it's like, okay, there it is. But hey, there's guides now. So people can just look them up. And someone actually platinumed the game in 3 hours, which is pretty wild. There's a video out there. Shout out to that guy. And I think he spent the last half hour trying to get one trophy, like a combat related one, that I'm not sure it was working completely. So it is possible to get it in like 2.5 hours if you skip all the dialogue and know where all those collectibles are.
Yeah, it took me right at 10 hours, which I think is perfect.
I think that's about where I'll end up. Yeah,
that's good. Like you can finish the game in 6 to 7, depending on how good you are, what difficulty you play on, and that's enough for some people. But then if you want to put in all that extra work to get the platinum, it's only an extra couple of hours. I like that too.
Yep. Yeah. All right. Well, we know you had a sleepy baby there, so we'll let you out of here after one more. So we said collectively our favorite game of all time, Link to the Past. If you look at our individual lists, my favorite game of all time is actually Ocarina of Time. Kevin's is Metal Gear Solid 3. So I'm curious, your favorite game of all time.
Oh, that's a tough one. That's a very tough one. I Metal Gear Solid, the original one, is probably the one that has been close to me for the longest period, and I still like, because narrative in games is such a big component to me. So I think that's probably the one game. Like if only one game could exist, maybe ever, like that. Metal Gear Solid. That's it. But it's hard to draw a line because like The Last of Us is potentially right up there, and then even like The Last of Us Part 2, I could easily say that it's better than the first one. So where does that put me? And Final Fantasy VII's up there too. There's so many great games that all found ways to get referenced at some point within Trigger Witch, whether it's subtle or not so subtle.
Yep, good deal.
Awesome. Jono, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with us today. I know we've been going back and forth. Congratulations on Trigger Witch. Like I said in the review, it's one of our favorite games this year. It was made for us. I'm so happy for you that you got to do so much on this with the narrative, the sound design, the writing, and everything. If people want to find you, obviously you're on Twitter at Jono himself. Where else can they find you across the interwebs?
Yeah, so on all social medias, I'm at Jono himself. You can catch me on my podcast, Putting in Work, but more frequently than that, I'm doing Comedy Rewind, which is a comedy rewatch podcast. And that's as part of the 8-Bit Network. I've got a basketball podcast called Hoop Dreams, which releases fortnightly. We're in the off season now, so it might be slightly different, but we're still, we're planning to do a draft recap and a free agency episode coming up. So I'm here, there, and everywhere, but flogging the crap out of Trigger Witch at the moment. So if you want to see gameplay clips and reviews and everything, then look no further than my Twitter feed. And of course, I should mention to your listeners that it's on sale. It's on all platforms at the moment, and there's physical editions on Switch that you can get through Play Asia. Also PS5 for the port that's coming out. Oh, he's pulling on the microphone. That's not the thing to play with. Do I still sound okay?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, you're good.
So the PS5 update will be coming out later with, the adaptive triggers and 120 refresh rate and a new trophy list for people that want to get a double dip on the platinum trophy, which I'll definitely be doing. So there's a lot more Trigger Witch to look forward to.
Awesome. Yeah. So to anybody out there listening, we can't recommend this game enough. We absolutely love it. If you haven't played it yet, go out and get it. Thank us later.
Yep. Jono, thank you so much. You are truly one of, I've been following you for a while. You are truly what it seems to be one of the good guys in gaming.
Thank you.
So this was a lot of fun. Thank you for taking the time to be with us. Micah, thank you for showing up as well, little buddy. Oh man. Hey buddy.
Say bye.
Bye, Micah.
Bye. Thanks, guys. It's been awesome to chat about the game, and especially with people who are such big fans of it. It's great. Like I've done a bunch of podcasts, and some of them will, like, with a lot of them are with people I know or people who haven't played the game yet. Yeah. So it's to talk to people who are somewhat strangers, like we've never had conversations before, apart from on like Twitter. So to hear people who don't know me from the real world have enjoyed the game, it means a lot. You're not coming into it with any bias, and it fills me with warm, fuzzy feelings to know that it's a game that's made you guys happy, and that at Rainbite they've done such a great job. And how good's the music too, I should say. I've had nothing to do with it, but the soundtrack's up on Spotify and SoundCloud and iTunes and YouTube. It's all over the place now, so check out the soundtrack too.
It's awesome. I love how it goes from so peaceful and everything, and then when the enemies show up, it's just like Metallica guitar riffs and everything. It's awesome. But yeah, again, Jono, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for this episode of the Two Player Co-op Podcast. But until the next time, Sean, go ahead and take us out.
Thank you for playing.